Most of
Let's designated storm management. Oh, but it's this bit in the oh, I got you. Gosh, we're so clean, aren't you? Right. Sorry. I just think my clients on the way. My sex ways for this. Well, you would, but it's something I've done a terrible
Right, we are back online and ready to go. So we've got those extra resolutions that have been added. Are you able to bring that up on the screen, Mark?
Yep.
And because we do not have a mover or a seconder yet, this is not an amendment, this is just
as it is.
yeah. So I'm happy to move. Do we have a seconder?
Can I just have a minute to
Have a read
see
of
the
the
resolutions?
resolutions? Yes.
So the changed ones.
The highlighted ones,
Yeah.
yes.
First two, and then there were these other ones as well.
Can I clarify the resolution 5? The entire length of Sawyers Road extends all the way to Roto Kohato Reserve, right past Johns Road. Is that the intent of that?
No, it should be two.
It's probably not the entire length. It's probably just from Main North Road to Northcote Road.
Yep. Sorry, good spot.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea.
Should have just let that one.
That's what I'm pretty sure a councillor will pick it up. Up to council.
Oh, you have to read it.
Would you? Would you be pretty sure?
And so the last two there are just noting all those points that came through on the submissions.
Board's will.
So from Northcote or about Northcote?
Oh, so that's the Northcote community. Submissions from Northcote,
I
the area, the suburb.
So we have a seconder.
I'm happy to second.
Simon, you can second it.
I know I shouldn't ask the question, but just it's about the new resolution. That what does the board's will mean, and how does that indicate any action? How would we? How can we pick that up as in a tracking document or anything like that?
I don't think we're going to have to, because I think we're going to see it all come through by the sound of
Well,
what we heard.
Yeah, Mike, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, sorry. It's actually a good question. Number 10, I think, is pretty straight. Will come through because we know that whole area. I guess it's just, and maybe staff can give some advice in terms of 9. So that they spoke obviously that there's, I guess, a bit of funding issue because you need to do it. But yeah, is it on council's radar, I guess, or do we need to make a resolution to ensure that it actually goes on the radar that when for that business area to actually reduce?
I think we should. It wouldn't hurt. So change the board's will to the board requests staff to progress towards.
Gemma, did you want to comment?
Yes, so the for the next financial year, which starts in 2 weeks, and the following financial year, the funding currently we're working within existing budgets is for neighbourhood streets and schools. The plan for 24-27, which we will prepare in parallel to getting this one underway, we'll look at those arterial roads, activity streets. So it probably would be 24-27 that would sit in those.
So are you happy with the wording in 9 now?
Yep.
Just gives you a mandate to go ahead.
The other thing, obviously, this is going to come to council again.
The funding. And
Will come in front of council anyhow, so there's opportunity to progress potentially a little bit at council.
Right, so we'll move on to the debate. Ellie.
Just really quickly, I wanted to respond to what Emma said too, because she's in one street, but the slow street's on. I'm on another street on Westminster, and in fact, I've nearly been taken out twice in the last couple of months coming out of my driveway because of the speeds that are coming down there. So I'm pleased to hear about Courtney up and it's.
No, I'm not talking about, I wasn't talking about Courtney as a whole. I was just talking about the whole area.
Yeah, okay.
You may
So
have-
I heard that, Courtney has slowed down though, with that, and I'm just saying that it hasn't happened on my street. And apologies if I have got that incorrect. So I think one of the key things is that I would support this, but I think it's very important that it be looked at in a wider sense, in a strategic sense. It also needs to look at traffic flows and light phasing. I understand the point about arterial routes because of the congestion and fumes that creates with cars stopping and starting, and with the congestion, and also enforcement. And it's something that we're hearing regularly, that it's being requested that communication with police is made. However, there just doesn't seem to be that engagement for whatever reason to ensure that this is enforced. So I'll support it, but I think there are some other tools in the box that are needed to make sure that it works the very best that it should.
Mike.
Thank you. I'll just talk quickly. I totally support this, and I'd like to acknowledge and thank staff actually for a fantastic presentation, and the fact that actually you listened also to the deputations and made some quick changes, which was really impressive to see. I think one of the things that we're seeing now, we've done a number of these slower speed neighbourhoods, but actually when we do them, it's the other communities surrounding us, and actually we want this to. This is becoming a norm, and actually we'll see it as it does get rolled out, that people will start driving a lot slower in communities and neighbourhoods, and everyone actually benefits from that, the safety aspect. And actually, we know what happens if a kid gets hit at 40 k's compared to 50 k's. There's a huge difference there. I'm looking forward to this, and it's really good when you look through the submissions, how much support it gets compared to when we first started to do this. So we've seen a change, and I look forward to actually the fact that we can roll these out a lot quicker and just do one consultation, so actually the city as a whole can see what we're trying to do in neighbourhoods, and actually to create a safer environment and a more livable streets. I think as a communities and as a city, we're going to be better off for it.
Simon.
Thank you, Emma. I just want to acknowledge members of the public who submitted on this, all the range of views that we received, and also those who have come along today to share their thoughts. I think we should acknowledge, I'm not sure if it's the government or NZTA, for getting that rule change through that has enabled us to finesse and improve what was beyond what was originally proposed. And thanks to staff for the flexibility around some of these changes, and for the information you presented to us today in the report and at the meeting. And I'll be delighted to support this.
Simon. Yeah.
I'm delighted to support it.
I'll just finish up by saying I'm 100% supportive of this, and I really appreciate the fact that staff have been able to make those changes today. And also the changes that were made after the consultation. I think we've really shown that we did listen and heard those views. I also just want us to note that some of the submitters that opposed it, they were of the view that why do it because people won't actually change their behaviour. So I'm really pleased to hear that relationship with police around enforcement is hopefully going to progress forward, because I think, as Ali said, that's a really big part of it. But yeah, 100% supportive of this, and I'm really glad that we managed to get this in after that rule change as well. So that's great. So we'll put that motion. All those in favour? It's carried.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item 8. I'm going to step back into the discussion on, so over to you, Simon.
I was going to say the same.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's one thing I agree.
Oh, it's not mentioned in it.
Okay, so we have a report and a recommendation on the Sticks Living Laboratory Field Centre. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. I've got nothing further to add. I know I read your previous minutes, and I see a couple of the board members went to the opening of the building, so that's good. I personally haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to a little road trip to go there.
Sure thing. And you're Kathy, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Mike.
Thank you for the report. Just one question around the lease amount, 20,000. Is there a reason why we're not doing a peppercorn?
Yeah, that was negotiated with the trust and with park staff that are working on that. They've had that budget amount there. There was a residential rent that we were receiving prior to that tenancy being ended. So this amount helps with the operational costs that we've got with the sewer, the septic tank, external building upgrades, things like that. So the parks unit wanted to get her to receive a rent like that. And it's when it's a building that we own. We don't have that policy yet for how we set rents for the groups, and it is our buildings and our infrastructure.
Yeah,
so
okay.
we
so
get a rental.
The rental then, so the trust is happy with that quantum, and that money will go back into
The programs and the maintenance and
in that area is
in that building.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. If I can just follow on from that, I was going to ask us for a policy on how a rent is set. And if it's not, can I just check, is the figure that's been arrived at, is it consistent with council's approach to rental of other properties?
It is. We're working on a policy. We've been trying to develop a policy for a number of years, had a few roadblocks in the way. And that'll be going to the council. We were hoping this year, but it'll be next year. I understand where we look at. We've got rents for community groups where they own their own infrastructure. So that's a nominal rental for ground leases. But in groups where we're renting out a building that we own, then we get a higher rental return on that. And that goes towards the costs of maintaining. It's not jam jar accounting, but it's in the budget, operational budget. Parks have had a rental. I think the rental prior to this was $650 a week. So they are reducing their income, but it's in there.
This is also a pretty significant operation too, with a big chunk of change that's just been awarded to them for their programs. Do you consider the viability, the money in the bank, the access to funds when setting, is that part of that policy that's going to the council?
Yeah, that will be part of that policy.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So the board has the delegation to approve the setting of $20,000 lease.
Yeah.
Cool. If there's no further questions, I'm going to check if we've got them.
Sorry, I do have a question because I just.
Microphone.
Where did the $20,000 come from? Like,
We just had them.
sorry, was that answered? Okay, and other community groups that I am aware of don't pay anything. So just the fact that they've got this lump sum of money that is there that the council can take a chunk of, is it appropriate that we are showing respect of their work by taking that?
That wasn't in the answer. Sorry, point of order really, Simon. That's been asked and answered.
Can I just hear it again? Sorry, because I missed that.
How did you ascertain the fee for that?
That was the parks team who's responsible for this, looked at it. They've had negotiations with the trust. They've been working with the trust. There was a residential rental that was received. There was income coming into the council for the residential rental. That was terminated. They looked at the operating costs that they've got for this building. There's septic tanks, there's sewer, there's building repairs and things that are going to be needed. And they negotiated, the program directors and Parks and Six Trust have negotiated a rental for this, and the trust have done that.
So why have they done it under a rental rather than being responsible for the upkeep of the building? Why is it charged as a rental cost rather than agreeing to the trust agreeing to input into the management of the building?
I'd have to go back to the finance team and to Parks for that. I can just report that this was a rental that was agreed between them. Parks were looking to have an income. They had a rental income previous to this, and now that it's been set aside for the trust, they've got all the land, the other buildings, and they were looking at a rental return on this. The rental
I
policy.
just asked because it could just be seen as council, being looking a bit stingy.
Yeah, we
and
do
not supportive of
charge,
this
yeah.
amazing project that's going on.
The lease will have in the rent review provisions, it will have that the rent reviews are done in conjunction with any policy that the council has for setting rents for community groups and organizations. It could be that when there is a future rent policy in place, that it could reduce. But this is the plan for the first 5 years.
Or maybe to move it.
Thank you, Ellie. Ellie has moved. I'm happy to second. Just want to check if there's any debate. Otherwise, I will ask for all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go to the chair.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll move to item 9, Cranford Street near McFadden's Road, proposed PTN and no stopping restrictions. And Gary, welcome.
Morning.
Morning.
So is there anything you wanted to add to the report? Or just take it as read and take questions?
One little detail I've got to be quite honest about. So we consulted on this. We letter dropped the local property owners around here. We did get a response from the person who lives at 312, the grey building just to the top right. He, I think, normally parks a vehicle on the street, but he replied about 2 weeks after the closing date. He wasn't fiercely objecting to it. I did say if you did want to make a deputation or speak at the meeting, I did provide details of today. And as far as I know, I've checked in with Mark. We've not heard from this gentleman. But otherwise, we've got the full support for this project.
Any questions, Barry? Mike?
I had deputation earlier around this, and they spoke about vegetation. Obviously, where the fence is going to be removed by just making sure that vegetation is actually low vegetation is not actually going to come up and block visibility as well.
I'm not privy to that, Mike. I'll need to check with the project manager, Ross Herritt, on that. I'm a senior traffic engineer.
Yeah.
I've been working with the project manager on this. I've just really been driving the traffic restrictions, road markings and so forth. But I'll pass on.
I think the point that Mike's made is very important in considering this though. When you looked at this, did you consider things like visibility related to vegetation and fence lines?
Not myself personally. The project manager would have done. I'm a senior traffic engineer and I wouldn't have influenced the vegetation height. But all I can do is report that back to the PM in terms of vegetation.
But your recommendations that are coming to us today,
Yeah.
you're now reporting back on something that I'm asking whether it was included in the consideration of presenting the recommendation today.
It was taken into account, but the view was that parked vehicles were a significant contributor with or without a change in vegetation, that it was imperative.
Okay, you've answered the question. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we know that there is Ross's ongoing work along this shared path with the other measures to make it safer, the markings on the road and the jug bars.
Be just good to nail it, right? And do it all in one shot.
No, I'll certainly put that on.
Okay.
One question I have in response to hearing about that resident at 312, would it be possible to make that PTN outside that property time restricted, like it is only applying at a certain time?
Yeah, so what I pondered on is the value of perhaps making that P10 Monday to Friday. I mean, it's 8 till 6 by default anyway, even though it's not explicitly set on the sign. When I mentioned that to him, he was more relaxed because he knew he could park the vehicle overnight.
Okay.
So,
So there's no need to do that, you don't think?
yeah, it's the nature of signs when you see that. It's not obvious to most people, including me sometimes, that it's perfectly okay to park overnight.
Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. Is the P10 there for the nursery, is it? Is that the main point of it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No. Okay, do we have a, Simon's moved, Mike seconded, we'll put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you very much, Barry.
Great, thanks very much.
Okay. Item 10, Langdon Road Transport Update. I've got Leafy and Kirsty. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here today. We've had a significant amount of staff changes, and I know that you guys have worked in the past with Mark Gregory, who has unfortunately moved on to private consulting earlier this year. But I'm very pleased to introduce Nikki, who's joined the team a couple of months ago and is trying to get up to speed with everything happening in this area. So I'm not going to put him on the spot today to answer questions or anything like that, but the purpose of coming here today was that there was an action that Mark had that we've kind of tried to come through with on a bit of an update on what's happening with transport in the area, and including things like the speed management, which you would have heard about just earlier with Gemma and the team. There is an awful lot happening in this area, and so Leaky's actually trying to get his head around everything that's going on. And so some of the key things, I guess, are that the pedestrian islands up near North Link on Langdons Road, they're going in. There's work being looked at for the Greers-Langdons intersection, but that's also subject of a variation for the resource consent application, which is being assessed for the transport effects by an independent consultant. That's not coming through our team. And then we've also got a project manager working on the Sawyers Arms, Greers Road and Northcote Road intersection. So that's got approved funding from Kotahi to help that progress, particularly on safety grounds. So there's a lot happening, and Ricky's getting his head around that and doing quite a bit of modelling work at the moment to try and help with some of the impacts of what we're actually seeing on the ground. We've also seen some of the speed management changes and how that's affecting traffic flows in the area. And we're also working with Papanui High School around some of their work with their rebuild and about they want to have drop-off zones and changing their car parking on site and all the access for their students as they look to increase their role over the next few years. So as I said, there's a lot going on, and both of us are getting our heads around it all. But yeah, really interested in anything of this that you'd like us to go away and particularly think about as over probably the next 6 months. We'd hope to come back by the end of the year with, hey, this is what we actually think it's going to look like. Bear in mind that this is variation application as well for North Lake about whether they have to do, they wanted to cancel the condition of their consent to put in the traffic lights at Greers-Langdons. So that's currently being assessed at the moment. So there's been that variation application made to council.
It's a pretty major variation.
It is, yeah, and we're not assessing that. That's been put out to independent.
That's how they can do this.
Oh,
So before we do it, because it's time.
Right. Okay, that's interesting to hear that, because that's the first I've heard about it.
We didn't know about
Must be
that.
for others as well. So yeah, do please keep us updated on.
Absolutely.
that.
I know I've been looking at few things through to Mark, because I haven't heard about this, and so I went away and found out what I couldn't have and sent through some links. But
Because obviously if they are able to open in the third stage without those lights being in, that's just going to be chaos.
Yeah.
Ali?
Can I just ask about that too? I mean, it's really interesting again that this has been raised over and over about community board being informed of, and this isn't for you mainly, it's mainly for staff, I think. We have asked in the past where there have been major issues or there are major issues around consents being applied for, or in this case, a variation of, that the community board be kept informed on that. Can I just raise that and ask that that be reiterated,
Yeah.
and that we get some sort of briefing on this now and what that might mean? I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, or Emma, how you feel, but this is an area of major focus and concern for us.
because it came about because Emma emailed me and says, I've heard a rumour, and so I went away and asked.
I'm still checking on the rumour.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And so, yeah, we're kind of all trying to help each other find out. what's-
Can I just calmly say that we shouldn't be learning things through rulers? And thank you, Emma, for following that up, but wow.
When is the funding for the Greer's Northcote Sawyers Arms intersection being asked?
So we had that approval through from Whakakotai to get funding subsidy, so it's in planning stage at the moment, and I'm catching up with the project manager on Monday as part of a catch up on what's going on, so and Megan's involved with that from a planning and modelling perspective, so certainly we'll get into do a bit of an update even.
Great.
So I wanted to add, it's obviously still subject to the annual plan decision next week.
All right.
Yeah, which it should not be an issue.
No.
But I guess that budget's spread over a number of years, and but hopefully it can be pulled back if possible. So, but we still have. It's concerning to hear what's happening with this resource consent variation. Very concerning. But we're still having conversations around actually some monetary contribution from the developer, because the reality is we are putting this in because of there is a lot of development happening down there, but it's really Northland has been one of the key drivers of late to bring so many more people in. Are we still having those conversations, or is that pretty much gone?
So our transport planning team is trying to work more closely with our subdivisions and consenting teams so that we actually get a bit more collaboration and sharing of information. But they would often do that kind of negotiation stuff, and so we don't tend to get involved in that side of it as much. But it's definitely something that we can work together and find out more and be kept in the loop the better.
Yeah, because I guess when you look at, we're obviously going to approve the annual plan next week, which will have that the money in there, which I guess takes away that incentive for him to do anything. But the actual entrance, which has got multiple entrances to that development, but the fact that there's no traffic lights in there, the potential actually of having a conversation with the developer in that space to say, actually, we could co-invest and co-fund here to actually put a better signalised entrance.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's been interesting of recent times, particularly with the enabling housing legislation changes, is the intensification areas and how that's actually going to impact as over the next 5 to 10 years plus on this area, because it's close to a key activity centre with Northlands, and Northland perhaps being part of that commercial centre, depending on how the planning rules evolve. But in the zoning, it's like that, it could all be subject to being in the middle of an intensification areas, and they've got the parking issues and so there's a whole lot more traffic, and we're wanting to encourage people to walk and cycle. So there's this bigger picture that we're trying to incorporate as well. So as I said, we're getting our heads around it.
Anything else?
No,
Questions?
no, it's been answered.
So we need to move it in a second to receive that update. Kelly,
I'll see.
quickly.
Well, again, a silly thought, but outside the square of normal thinking, it sounds like the developer is bullying the council. And so therefore the council needs to look outside its normal ways of working. And the thought that comes to me is road crossings. So, you know, a developer isn't willing to pay for appropriate infrastructure in the area for his development. Developer wants to go outside of what was the agreed regulations. Does the council have any ability to do things like stop, not allow a road crossing, so therefore people can't get in and out? I mean, at some stage, where is the city council going to stand up to the bullies of the developers and the rules that are set that we can't get around, and look at our own rules and perhaps change some of those for the benefit of people living around the area?
That might be a question directed to our planning team.
Take that back to them.
I think the consent, once the consent has been granted, I think
It does make it more difficult.
But they're looking for a change of the consent.
Just as they did at Bunnings and Shirley.
Yeah, it just seems that they get around it, and we need to be a bit better at saying, actually, you know, I don't know,
Oh, no.
sorry.
Right, so Simon's moved the receiving of this report.
I've
Ally-
already done that.
Oh, Ellie moved it. Well, Simon, you can
Simon
second it.
seconded.
We'll put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye. Thank you.
Carried. Thanks, guys, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Good luck, yeah, your head round it all.
Thanks so much.
Glazed over.
Right, item 11, discretionary response fund application for the activation of Shirley Community Reserve and St Albans Residents Association. Welcome, me.
Fiona, you guys have had a busy morning.
It's been a big one, yeah.
I was here 1 a month, but.
Have you got any questions about the DRS?
You would have all received the memo from Kelly, which,
I think that memo is part of the area report, isn't it?
yeah, but it does have an effect
Yes.
on the activation. So the activation gives the board all options available of what they would like to do with that money that they ring-fenced in regards to the Shirley Road side.
I'm happy to move it.
Do you want to do both together?
Yep.
So, Emma, or do you want to separate them so that you can vote for the Shirley one, Emma?
Look, I'm fine as it is.
Okay, so we'll do them together.
Can I just, sorry,
Go ahead, Mike.
I just looking at the Sarah one and just wondering if the board would be happy just to increase that to exclude the entertainer of 300, but do the other two items, which is 360 and 180, which is 540 instead of 450.
So that excludes the entertainer.
Yeah, I'll just take the entertainer off and just do the volunteer expenses and the equipment materials, which would put up to 540 instead of the 450. So it's just a minor increase.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Same. Right, so
Can I ask a question? Can you ask a question if you've moved it? You can, can't you?
yeah, we don't have a second yet, so go ahead.
Oh, okay, right. I shouldn't, I'm distracted. We're still waiting for, and this might be more a question for staff too. We still haven't had information on cost of loos, potential.
It's in the memo that's in the area report.
Oh, it is in there, is it? Okay, sorry, missed that. Thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Right, so Ali has moved, Simon has seconded, and that's with the $540 amount. So we'll put that motion, that's for all of those resolutions. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. That moves us on to the Villa Maria College application. I'm happy to move that one. Mike seconded it. Put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried. And then on to the area report.
We'll take the area report as read and then take any questions, should there be any.
Can I just ask, I know that Pauline raised the issue of why the fencing for around the toddler area in the park had been delayed. I think that's mentioned in here, isn't it? That or am I missing it? Is there something in here about the park? All right, I'll do it in members exchange. Yeah.
Anything else from the area report?
Sorry, I'm just trying to
Simon?
find that again.
Thank you. Just on the memo, thank you, on 10 Shirley Road, sorry, I'm just paging through. I want to acknowledge staff for providing that memo. It's helpful for the board to have a sort of a big picture there. I did just want to note for the record my surprise that there wasn't a mention in the memo of the LTP funding for parks in the order of $500,000 for the site. It would have been helpful, I think, to have had the complete picture in there. But we've had a clarification on that for the board. I just wanted to mention it for the record in the meeting.
Simon? Anything else? No. Okay, so we need a mover and a seconder to receive the area report. Mike has moved it. I'll second it. We'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And finally, item 14, elected members information exchange. Who wants to start off? Alice?
I just wanted to raise the issue of crime in the area. I don't know whether you guys are on Facebook or social media, but it's really concerning to see a regular, consistent amount of petty crime in the area, and with people having video cameras in their, CCTV at their homes now. There is regular posting of basically opportunistic kind of going up the driveway and checking in cars. And there was a car broken into outside our place on Sunday night or Monday. So I wondered if we could request from police, and when is the next time we're hearing from them as far as coming to the board goes, could we request some information around, what do they call it when you break into a car? Is it, there's a word for it, they've got a phrase. Could we find out what sort of reported petty crime in the area, and the St Albans area particularly, because that's what I'm seeing it on the Facebook pages.
Oh,
It's everywhere.
But so it's across the city, you mean, or?
it's across our wards as well.
It is.
Depends what community pages you look at.
Yeah, right, okay, all right. Well, could we get some idea then, or a report from police on the petty crime in our ward areas might be and what sort of crime that is? Is it the same people? Because the feedback I'm hearing from residents, which is concerning, again, we need both sides here, is that A, people aren't bothering reporting it, and B, when they do report it, police are saying, well, there's not really much we can do. And whether that's to do with the lack of evidential quality of the cameras and the pictures that they're providing, or whether it's just that they haven't got the resourcing. I'm just wondering if we could have an update on that, please.
Through you, if I can. I can go onto the police site. There's actually a tool that you can drum in to pick up various different crimes and to do that by areas.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I can forward a link
Yeah,
that
great.
you can have a look at. I don't know how up to date, if it's last quarter, this quarter, or it's current, it's an active tool. But if I
I think they said they
they
update that weekly.
I'll send
Thanks,
that link
Great.
through, but also we'll follow up to see if we can get a local update from police
Yeah,
as
that
well.
would be, if the board feels that that's appropriate. It's, yeah, okay, thank you.
I'd rather look at the reasons why it's happening.
Yeah, that's the long-term
I
thing.
blame the
No,
people that are
that's the
doing it.
long-term thing, but we've also got to, I'm really concerned about people's safety as well. A woman had her money stolen out of her car that she was going to buy groceries for her family, I know you don't leave money in your car, but still.
That's right.
Yeah, but.
I just have the two items that Pauline raised earlier that I'd like to put in there. So in response, Mark, you've got the wording there that Pauline sent through. And there's in response to the deputation from Susan Peake, we start to commence an area-wide traffic movement report for the living streets around Grants Road, noting the impacts of the housing intensification in the area, the impacts of future housing development in the Crampton Basin, and the increased rat running and speeding in the area. And then request a copy of the most recent engineering report for the Shirley Library and include a summary of information for the board relating to any potential repairs or rebuild requirements.
What are we going to gain from that report around Grants Road? What are we looking to gain from that report?
I'm looking for an opportunity to improve safety. Susan's reported safety concerns.
And especially that intersection.
It's the intersection.
At Raeburn and Grants.
Yeah.
Is it still for purposes? What it was designed to do actually currently work in it, or does it actually need to be changed? But one other thing it would be good to get a list from staff of actually what are the issues they identified from that consultation that's been referred to the transport unit.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that everything's picked up, because I think it's like doing that type of consultation actually brings out a number of issues within the community. So it'd be good just to know what they've actually already identified.
You want that as a.
Well, if we're going to do it, if we're going to put a few notes in there, it'll be good to just note it down, that request information from the transport team or whoever about what additional issues were identified in this low speed neighbourhood consultation.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we can track it.
So it was request
Oh, I can't remember now.
Request information from transport staff
That additional,
about additional
Issues.
issues arising from the Papanui slow speed neighbourhood consultation.
it saves us trying to list them all now, and then it comes through, we can say, well, actually, I'll recall this one.
And like you said, if she's referred them to Wayne, there should be a list.
Yeah, so it shouldn't take much, I just want to see the list to make sure that's everything.
Ellie,
It's been mentioned to me by a neighbour that the cycle counter in Rutland Reserve isn't working. And since there was some work in the reserve, it hasn't been working. Could we just find out whether that's correct or not? Because I've actually seen numbers coming off it. But he's pretty sure that it is no longer working, and I haven't asked him how he knows that. But yeah, well, that's right, maybe he does. So could we just find that out, please?
Yep, we had that in there, Mark.
What was it?
It's the cycle counter. I think it's at the entrance to, but it's around the Rutland Reserve area. It's shown on the cycle counter map, I think, as being at the entrance to.
Just need to check that.
Yeah, can we just see if it's, a neighbour's mentioned to me that it's not working.
It's not on the map. It's not on the map.
Oh, it's not on there.
Yeah, it's not on the map.
Oh, well, that might be how he knows it's not working. So could we just, because that's a pretty key location for cycle use, especially with the kids around there as well. And do we differentiate between commuter cycling and recreational cycling? We don't.
Councils can't.
No, I know. I just wondered if there was a way to do that. And one other thing, just so that I've got it noted here in minutes, I understand that the briefing on the flooding and water coming into the Tim's, Butchers and Edgware, that has been delayed because of a resourcing issue. So could I just have that noted here that has been delayed? It was due to come to us, I believe, towards the end of July, which I'd also like to note, and I appreciate there's a lot of staff pressure and resourcing issues, but we're now 7 months after this was first raised at the beginning of this year. And I'm concerned as we get into winter with wet weather and ongoing issues that we're just, it's not when, it's if. It's not if, it's when, rather. It's going to
How long has he had his insurance claim to do his rebuild?
I don't think that's relevant, actually. No, I don't. So, and there are still a number of questions in the email that I've sent that I'm still keen to get the answers on. Appreciate Mark's very prompt and speedy responses. That you must have your feet on fire. You're moving around like a Superman. But I'm still very keen to know why we're even going outside the organisation to build a scope of what we need to look at. I'm very confused on that, and why we're having a whiteboard session. I don't understand what a whiteboard session is supposed to be achieving. So I'd just like some clarification on that, please.
Yeah, we'll follow it up.
Thank you.
I would just like to note that Mike and Simon and I went and presented the first of the Community Service Awards last night.
Did you get a photo?
I got a photo. I'm waiting to get permission from her to use it.
Okay.
Normally if we have an event, we get them to sign as they go in,
yeah.
but because we haven't
Been doing it, yeah.
So once I've got that permission, there'll be some photos going up.
Can I just say to that, why don't we on the application form when people apply for, or when,
There's no names
of
and
course
stuff.
it is, shit, sorry, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So you can swear a bit more.
No, sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
So, Emma, just on that, can I check with staff maybe at what point it's possible to publicly acknowledge all of the recipients? So far as I know at the moment.
I spoke to Lisa about that the other day.
Hmm.
She's sending out letters to all those who are receiving them over in sometime in the next week or so. So basically, once everyone's received their letters telling them they're getting one, then we're good to publicly release that list.
Thank you.
You didn't like my idea?
Well, I do, but not until everybody knows that.
No, not to use names, but that media release, that draft release I sent you basically said this is our first one, we've got a whole lot more coming.
Yeah, but we can't do that until I've got permission from Megan Hurd.
Oh, no, I know that. So when you've got permission, will you?
Yeah,
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's
And
just
provided
a
I
gift.
can find a good photo. All wearing masks.
Yeah. But we were smiling behind them.
Anyone else?
I just, a thought, when you come out of the Rutland Reserve down, onto Rutland Street, there's some really bad, bits on right there for your bike. I mean,
Transition.
the transition down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if they're doing a little bit of work in that area and things on the road there, can that be looked at and perhaps improved?
It's
Because
awful when you're on a
oh,
scooter.
it's terrible.
On a
It's
scooter. you just
absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
It hurts actually. So just adding that in there.
Okay.
Can we follow up the work that was done in the Edgware water station area with the plants? So there was some work there, but the resident who initially complained has said that they actually haven't done the work across her, right at her fence line. So it's still like the trees are still all going all over her property. So could we revisit that work done?
Where is that, Emma?
So Trafalgar Street.
Yeah.
So you know where the reserve is there.
Yeah.
It's on the right hand side. So it's just the foliage on the right hand side. And it's all overgrowing on her onto her property. All the leaves are gone at the moment, so it's not an issue, but it will be as soon as spring comes through. Yeah.
Noting that down. Great. Anything else? No. Last chance, Emma.
Go, close it.
We're speaking. Okay, right, I'm going to close with a karakia. Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamo te moana, kia tere te ka rohi I mua I tō hua rahi. Tau ai ngā matapono hei pou whakairo, te akina te whenua, kia atawhai ki te iwi, hau mai, koe e, pai.